Welcome to Daily Bread podcast. Uh, this evening, we're going to have a conversation about college is a trap. Sometimes, quote, sometimes. If you are a parent and you are considering sending your children to college, or if you have gone to college, I want you to tune in. Once again, daily podcast is for those individuals who are earning between $150,000 a year and $500,000 a year. I am interested in talking to high income earners. And the reason I want to talk to you high income earners is because you have the ability to maximize your wealth tremendously. But what we're taught to do with our money isn't always the strategies that allow us to build wealth. I'm Aaron Smith. I am a financial planner, financial coach, business owner, author. To share with you a little bit about who I am. I'm married, 60 years old. I have two kids. I have two grandkids. I did attend college. I graduated. I graduated with a major in sociology. I had a minor in economics. I went on to get my MBA. I got my MBA 3 years after I graduated out of school, right? To get my bachelor's degree. After I got my bachelor's degree, the reason that I got my MBA is because my parents, when I was younger, told me it was absolutely imperative that myself and my two brothers to become good citizens, high income earners, have a good life, that you had to go to college. That's what my mom and my dad preached to us. My mother was a domestic worker. My father was a truck driver. And their goal was to have us have a better life financially than they had. They said, go to college. So we did. I mean, it was important to us. But I'm here to tell you, getting my MBA was a bad decision. It was a waste of money. Whoa, Aaron, waste of money? Really? Let's talk about it. Just a little bit also about my firm. We have an advisory firm out of Richmond, Virginia. We manage a little bit over $250 million in assets. We work with individuals, small businesses, and excuse me, and nonprofits. We help them manage their wealth. Let me share with you how you get there. You know, one thing that's pretty interesting about this country is this country really is designed to build workers, right? They want workers. They want you to use your gifts, your talents, your skills, those things that are given to you by Almighty God. And they want to maximize all of those ideas, concepts, and intelligent ideas that you have right here. And they want to pay you that much for them, but you're worth that much. See, I wasn't taught that when I was in high school. I wasn't taught that when I was in college. I didn't know how to balance a checking account when I was in high school. When I was in high school, nobody ever taught me how to create a budget. I had no idea what a stock and bond was. This was in high school. I didn't know any of that stuff. I went to a liberal university, University of Richmond, very esteemed, wealthy university. Price tag way up here. I could not afford to go to that school if I didn't go on football scholarship. I was a good enough athlete. They asked me to come in the 80s, and they were going to give me a full scholarship to go to school. And that's what I did. I was amazed what I found out when I went to school at the University of Richmond. I saw individuals, children, young kids, teenagers. They were driving around in these fancy cars. They were living in these fancy homes. and their parents had these fancy jobs. And I was like, wow, why don't my parents have this wealth? What are we doing wrong? I recognized that they were no smarter than I was. Matter of fact, in many cases, I was smarter. And I couldn't figure it out until I started asking. Matter of fact, I spent a couple of years of intern with a couple of the students, their parents. And I asked them, how do you make your wealth? I was intrigued because I couldn't figure it out. I was like, my mom and dad, good people. Why they don't have the wealth that you have? Because they wasn't using the same strategies. They were taught that if you go to school, you're going to make higher income. Magic word, income. You're going to make more income, ladies and gentlemen, if you go to college. If you get an advanced degree, you'll make a little bit more income. That's how it's supposed to work. If you get even a little bit more higher advanced degree, you're going to make a lot more income. And I want y'all to tell me, if you're making between 150 and 500,000 right now, and you're college educated above masters, a doctorate, I want you to ask yourself right now, how wealthy are you? Could you stop working today and live off your income from the wealth that you have built? See, we were taught to go to school so that we can earn more income. Going to college is about earning more income. Now, is school a trap? Is college a trap? It can be. It can be. Because many of us today are going to college and we're coming out with debt. We have debt. So, in other words, you went to college, you got a higher degree, you got less wealth, you got negative wealth, negative net worth after you finish college. Negative net worth, meaning that if I didn't go to college, I at least am level. I have no wealth, but I don't have negative wealth. And when I do start earning an income, I don't have to go as far in income that you have to go because you have student loan debt. In other words, I can qualify for my first house much easier. I can start a business much easier because I don't carry any debt. I was fortunate, once again, to go to college on a scholarship. So when I left school, I didn't have any debt. But what I did have, I had this idea in my mind that I'm gonna have a wonderful financial life because what I have been able to obtain with the degrees that I have, I'll be able to obtain high income. Folks, that's what I did for a short period of time till I figured it out. What I want to talk to you about this evening is I want to talk to you how to build wealth. Wealth is not income, you all. Let me repeat that again. Wealth is not income. Because you have a high income, it is not wealth. That income could leave you tomorrow. Trust me. Yes, it can. How many federal employees with high income have been laid off? They no longer have a job. Can they leave that job, kick their feet up, and live off the same amount of income they were working? Many can't because they don't have wealth. See, they taught you how to make more income by going to school. And that is fantastic. You want to do that. I am not against higher education. I'm technically for higher education, but I'm more for building wealth. And there's a misconception that you build wealth because you have higher degrees and you're making more income. That's not how you build wealth. Wealth by taking the high income that you're making and funneling that income to investments and allow those investments to work for you over time. And over time, you have enough wealth to live the lifestyles that's important to you. But once again, we are still conditioned about, I'm going to make more income. So what happens? I get a job. I got some experience. Then I want a raise. If I don't get a raise here, I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to learn that system. I'm going to get a raise. I'm going to get a promotion. I get more income. What comes with more income? You pay more taxes. What comes with more income? You buy more stuff. You buy a bigger house. You buy a bigger car because you got more income. Now you're in the red race. And you're in the red race and you're wondering, we're making a household income of $250,000. Why are we broke? Why at the end of the month we have less month at the end of the month? Because we don't have enough income. Or we have just enough income to make it. It's because you have been taught incorrectly money. In many cases, you haven't been taught anything about money because you're not taught financial literacy. So here's how it goes. If you follow me, follow this podcast, once again, this podcast is for high income earners. If you're making between $150,000, $500,000 a year, I want you here. I'm going to show you how to use that income that you're making to bring peace of mind to your life, comfortability to your life, stress-free to your life. Because you're going to learn how to build wealth. See, the thing that they never taught you, it is no school system has ever taught this. You can go to the highest schools. Well, tell me, what you have your degrees in? Are you an RN? Mm-hmm. Are you a physician? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you go to law school? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe you're a CPA. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what you were taught. You were taught all those skill sets. And you know what? You're good at it. You're excellent at it. You know the class that you should take? You're not too late. You know the class that you should take? It's financial literacy. See, all that other stuff don't matter if you're not financial literate. If you don't know how to amortize, look at the amortization schedule and how to win against the amortization schedule. Mhm. If you don't know how to pay your mortgage off in 10 years versus carrying a 30-year mortgage. If you don't know how to be a landlord and have a tenant and have an apartment complex or properties and be able to live income free off those assets. If you don't know how to use a Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA because you've never been taught financial literacy, but you're an excellent attorney. You're a fantastic CPA. But you don't understand how to get multiple streams of income because you've never been taught how to do it. You understand the entrepreneurship, your skill sets, what you have learned, what you've been gifted with, allow those things to be able to multiply, allow your skill set to build wealth for yourself. You don't know how to leave wealth to your children. You don't know how to leave wealth to your children and your children's children, your children's children's children's. You don't even know what a dynasty trust is. You don't even know what a trust is. I'm not picking. I'm here to share with you how to win financially. Today, in this administration that we have today, in this country called America today, you got to get financially literate. You got to win financially. They trying to take it from you. They trying to take your standard of living. Oh my gosh. Unfortunately, you're allowing it. You're allowing it. What percentage of your income should you be investing? Are you investing 20% of your income? Where are you investing it? So as we talk about the conversation about school, let me say this. is there are multiple ways to go to school. And I would challenge you, if you have kids right now, this is what you want to be focused on. When they're born, you want to be focusing on how you get them to school. Let me give you some ideas. Let me give you some ideas, high income earners. One, this is what you want to do. This is the most popular way. That's not for everybody, but it's the most popular way. Do not do 529 plans. Do not do 529 plans. All you high income earners who want to save for your children's education, when you come in my office and I look at what you have, almost 100% of the time you have 529 plans. First of all, you have to must know what the cost of the education is. So the cost of education today is what? In a private school, it's going to cost you $50,000 to $70,000 a year. That's a private school. In an in-state school, it might cost you $23,000, $26,000 a year, depending on what state you're in. If you're going out of state, it might cost you $34,000, $40,000 a year. Okay. If you add that up over 4 years with the inflation of school, you could easily in an in-state school, you end up paying $180,000, $200,000 for 4 year college education. Your 529 plan is not going to cover that. Well, how you know, Aaron? Because you have to be putting $3,000 to $5,000 a month into your 529 for that to work. So there's a misconception that I'm putting $25, $50, $100, $200, $500 in my 529. It's going to pay for my children's education. Oh, add that times 2 if you got 2 children. How are you going to pay for their education? Can't do it with a 529. Remember, the goal is for your kids to go to school. The goal is for your kids to become educated. The more important goal is for them to come out with no debt. That's how you build wealth. You can't build wealth when you're already negative. So when you're leaving your kids with debt, you almost automatically causing them to have to force to be continue to work in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s, in their 60s, because they're always trying to catch up. We don't want our kids to catch up anymore. We want our kids to have a head start. We want our kids to have an advantage. And the advantage, ladies and gentlemen, if you're running a race, if you're running a 100-meter race, and you start on the 30-meter yard line, and I start at the starting gate, who's going to win? You're going to win every single time. It doesn't matter the degree that you have or don't have. You're going to win every single time. I can have an advanced degree, advanced degree, advanced degree. I'm not going to catch up with you. I'm not going to catch up with you. See? See, at the end of the day, it's about the wealth. It's about wealth building. So what are you going to use to send your kids to college? You're going to buy a piece of property. Whoa, Aaron, what you talking about? You're going to buy a second piece of property. You have a piece of property that you live in. You're going to buy a second piece of property. You're going to buy that property when your kid is between 1 year old and 5 years old. It's not going to matter how many kids you have. You're going to pay for their education and you're not going to have no debt. Well, Aaron, that makes sense. How am I going to buy that second piece of property? Because you're going to maximize your debt to income ratio. See, to get a piece of property, get a home, you have to qualify on your credit and you have to qualify on your debt to income ratio. So what you're going to do is you're going to find a piece of property, and it's going to be an inexpensive piece of property. It's going to cost you $100,000, $175,000, depending on where you reside. And you're going to go get a mortgage. That's right. You're going to go get a mortgage. You're going to get a mortgage for 80% of the value of the home. That means that you have to come up with 20%. All right? If you don't come up with that 20%, you're going to come up with it anyway when you send your kids to college. And you're going to do it in a loan. You're going to take it out your 401k. You're going to take it out the equity of your home. No, no, no. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. High income earners, we're not going to do that. What you're going to do is you're going to buy this piece of property. You're going to put 20% down. You're going to get a tenant. Follow me here. And I got a lot of these strategies of how you pay for college without having money come from your children. Your children have to take out debt. You don't have to take out debt, nor will your children have to take out debt. So you're going to buy this piece of property. Now, you know, with real estate, look at your properties. Look at the property that you bought. Is it worth more today than it was when you bought it? If you bought a piece of property 10 years ago, is it valued more today than it was 10 years ago? Yes, it is. 20 years ago, yes, it is. 30 years ago, yes, it is. That means that piece of property that you're going to buy for college education for your children is going to be worth more in 20 years when they're ready to go to school. So you're going to get what is called appreciation of that property. You're going to get a tenant. And that tenant is going to pay your rent. And if you buy it right, that tenant is going to pay more than what your monthly payment is on your mortgage. And you're going to take that extra money and you're going to put it to the principal and you're going to bring that amortization schedule down and you're going to have this property paid off. This property will be paid off in 17 years. By the time your first child goes to school, you're going to have that property paid off. Not only is it going to be worth 175, it's now going to be worth 275 because it's appreciated. Your rent is going to go up every year. You're going to put a 3% inflation factor on the rent in the contract, and that property value is going to go up every year. And the income. So 18 years from now, instead of getting $1,000 a month in income, you're now getting $1,800 a month in income. That's going to pay for your daughter's education. It's going to pay for every penny of her education for 4 years. Remember what's going to be happening in 4 years. That property is still going to be going up what? In value. How much debt are you going to have on the property? Zero. It's time for a second child to go to school. Where are you going to get that money from? That tenant going to pay it for you. See, if you're a high income earner, you're high degreed. You should have minimum 2 houses. Minimum. How can you not have 2 houses? That 38% of Americans in this country are renting. 38% in this country are renting. They're looking for places to rent. Why don't you have another house for them to rent? Because you haven't been taught to do it. You don't know how to do it. When you're not taught to do it, you don't know how to do it. What sets in? Fear. You're fearful to make a trigger, make a go at it. You make all the excuses why it ain't gonna work. You know what wealthy people are doing? They're sending their kids to school with no debt. Not only that, after they send their kids to school, right? If that kid need the property, they will gift the property over to their kids. They got a head start. They got a piece of $275,000 piece of property with no debt on it, gifted to that child. So guess what? They can live in the property, have no what? Mortgage. If they flip the property, they got what? $275,000 equity. That is one strategy that can be used multiple different ways. But what you're doing is you're leveraging, ladies and gentlemen, follow me here. You're leveraging your financial literacy. You're not leveraging your skill set as an attorney. You're not leveraging your skill set as a physician. You're not leveraging yourself as a CPA or business owner. You're not leveraging that. That is giving your foundation of your income. Your foundation of your income is coming from your profession, your skill sets, your gifts from your profession. You're now using financial literacy, Financial literacy only is going to do this. Financial literacy is going to allow you to maximize, to leverage your income so that you can build more wealth. There are thousands of these ideas. We're not leveraging them. So, is college a trap? For many of us, it is. It's a trap. They getting your money, and you getting hardly anything for but a degree. And when you get that degree ain't paying you what you're worth. Challenge me. Challenge me. Challenge me. When you leave college at 20 years old, 22 years old, higher degree, 24 years old, 25 years old, you're making $250,000 a year. You're 25, 26. You're 36. Now you're 36. 10 years later, you should be worth $1 million. 10 years in, you should be worth $1 million. My kids know from the financial literacy that they built ever since they were 5 and 6 years old. My kids know when they left college, they know by the time they hit 30, if they're not worth $1 million at 30, they ain't done it right. So, ladies and gentlemen, what is Aaron saying? Aaron is saying when you decide to send your kids to college, make sure that you send them the most cheapest way. If they qualify for a scholarship, you better send them there. It's going to mean wealth in the future that they're going to love you forever for. They might say, Mom, Dad, I don't want to go to that school. I don't want to go there. I know I got a scholarship, but I don't want to go there. They're going to thank you. If you want to send your kids to school, you might want to start thinking about sending them to a community college for 2 years. Then qualify them up for 2 more years to a higher education system, a university. You save money. Who's the goal? The goal is to get them to go to school, get educated without the debt. The goal is to send them to school and get them to understand not only are you learning financially, educationally, your gift, but I want you to learn financial literacy as well. I want you to take a financial literacy class online. Best class you could ever take. For you too. See, today, conversations around what? DEI. DEI. There are people in your circles that have less degrees than you have. They're earning more income. There are people in your circles today that haven't even gone to college. They're worth millions because they know how to leverage the money. They're financially literate. Well, how you know, Aaron? Because I work with them every day. I've worked with thousands of individuals that have built wealth. And they're in a better place for it. They're in a better place for it. They're able to give like they've never been able to give before. They're able to love like they've never loved before. They're able to build an even stronger relationship with their God than they've ever been before because they don't have the stress and the worryation. And it's not because they have high degrees. It's because they know how to leverage financial strategies. So I will encourage you, as you're thinking of sending your kids to college and preparing them, is learn a way that you can send them without them getting in debt. And along the way, when they come out, It's not about going and buy that first Mercedes Benz. It's not about go buy the most expensive clothes, designer clothes. Nope, nope. You teach them how to build wealth. And they need it more today. And we need it more today than ever because they don't want you to have anything. Look here. I'm Aaron Smith. This is your daily bread. And I'm going to bring some concepts, some ideas to you. I'm going to start thinking about maybe putting this thing on a board so you all can literally see it. Because I want to teach you, I just don't want to talk to you. I want to teach you how to do this stuff. Because nobody is teaching you. You know, the people that in my world that know this stuff, in my world, the folks that are mega millionaires, that are looking for advice from us and willing to pay the premium, pay the cost, they get the advice, right? Those only a small few. And many people who do what I do, they ain't gonna share this with you. Mm-mm. But Almighty gave me this gift and gave me the skills. And he put me around the right people. And I have soaked it up. And I have advised. I'm going to give it to you through this podcast. And hopefully, as time goes on, I can give it to you in some activities that you can engage in that put you in a better place financially. It doesn't happen overnight, but I just want you to think. This podcast is going to be for high income earners who want to think about monies and how to position themselves and their family to win financially. God bless you. We'll look forward to talking to you next time. See you later.